So good evening. My name's Michelle Shree-Kress, and I live here in Arnold Creek. And as of late, I have been asked to present throughout Portland about some important legal documents that you might want to consider including with your emergency kit should something happen. And I have at the back table here a list of those documents, but what I call them are my 4 back wheel incapacity documents. So you may have worked with an estate planning attorney and done a will, and that's fantastic. But really, in the course of 20 years of practice, I've only lost 3 clients. But in the past 5 years, I've had 10 clients use one of my 4 back wheel incapacity documents. So perhaps maybe look at the documents you've already drafted and make sure that if these documents are important to you, go back to whoever you retain to help you with your initial estate planning to ask him to add these documents in. So the 4 documents are made up of a physician advance directive, a durable power of attorney for finances, a HIPAA, and a temporary guardianship affidavit. A physician advance directive is a document whereby you could appoint somebody to stand in your shoes to help make medical decisions if you were incapable of making those decisions on your own. A durable power of attorney for finances is similar, but it addresses specifically financial situations that may come up. So if you're incapable of paying a bill, if you're trying to negotiate back and forth with Blue Cross Blue Shield about the payment for some additional testing that you need to have done, if during the emergency your wallet gets waylaid and somebody grabs a hold of your wallet and is charging up credit card bills and you're incapable of contacting the credit card company to let them know that it's a fraud. If you need to access your spouse's money in their checking account and your spouse is incapacitated but you desperately need that money to survive on a temporary basis, this would allow you to be able to do that. That document is called a durable power of attorney for finances. The 3rd document is a document called a HIPAA. And a HIPAA allows you to appoint somebody to stand in your shoes to transmit medical information electronically. It's called a HIPAA. It is a good idea for you to have a HIPAA if you have a physician advance directive, because of course you would want the person that you appointed as your healthcare representative to have access to your information, your health information. And if you're treated at a hospital that you weren't anticipating going to, this would allow your spouse to be able to contact that hospital and ask for your medical records to be transferred to your primary care physician when the emergency alleviated. The 4th document is for anybody that has minor children at home or are watching your grandchildren who are minor children. And that document is called a temporary guardianship affidavit. And that allows you to stand in the biological parent's shoes to allow for medical treatment for that child. It also allows you to go collect that child in case of an emergency if the parents aren't able to collect the child on their own. So for example, we live here, not blocks away from here, but we chose to send our children to a PPS school that was on the other side of the river. And I was very concerned that Stephen and I, my husband and I, both work on the west side. We live on the west side. Our kids are going to school on the east side. What happens if there's a national disaster and something would happen and they close down those bridges? To which my girlfriend said, well, you're the coxswain for the Lake Oswego Rowing Club. You can just bring a boat over there. To be sure, but then I would have to stay behind because I surely tell you that boat won't be there when I get back, right? So that's not a great thing. So I wanted to make sure to appoint somebody on the east side of the river that should something happen, not only could they come collect my child, but they could also arrange for medical treatment if they weren't able to get a hold of me. I don't want to take up too much time, but as I said, I went ahead and left a summary of these documents over there. Anybody has any questions whatsoever, always feel free to give me a ring, send me an email. I'd be happy to answer those questions if you have a few moments. And I wanted to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
So she was quick, so we could probably ask her a couple questions.
Yeah.
Oh, you make it so easy. Okay, that sounds great.
You said that for spouses, if you don't have a power of attorney and a spouse, something happens, what happens? I mean,
That's a great
as a
question. It
spouse?
depends on the scenario, and it depends what assets. So, and it depends whether you want to stand in your spouse's shoes to make a medical decision or a financial decision. But if you think about it, many of us have joint assets. Maybe we're both entitled to a house. maybe we're both on the same credit card, but how many of us have had tried to call the credit card company and wanted to ask a simple question? And the credit card company says, oh, I'm so very sorry, you're not the primary on that account, right? Also, we have retirement money that are in our individual names, or we have life insurance, maybe with cash value that's built up on those individual names. You can't automatically stand in your spouse's shoes unless you've been pre-given some authority, some legal authority to do that. Same thing with the medical. And the reason is that the medical care facilities, they're really concerned about honoring your privacy. And they don't want to just assume that your spouse or your partner or another close family member can stand in your shoes to make important medical decisions unless you've given them the authority to do so. And my concern is so many of my clients come to see me and they say, oh, it's okay, I have a medical release on file with my PCP, my primary care physician. That's fantastic, but what happens if you're brought to an institution that doesn't house your primary care physician? And you come with somebody else that you would absolutely trust to help weigh in on a medical decision, especially if you're incapacitated, but they have no access to that document. And finally, what I would recommend is if you have done some of these documents, I actually suggest people ask me, where should these things live? I think it's a great idea if you have the capability to do so, to have it scanned and send it to yourself and have it on your smartphones. Because it's more likely that you are going to have your smartphone with you in case of a disaster than you're going to have access to get into your closet, open up your fireproof safe, grab that duffel, throw it in the car, and take it someplace with you. And that second page, I went ahead and made a list of things that should be in your financial footlocker, and if anybody has some questions about that too, I'm happy to answer that either after the meeting, or you're welcome to give me a call or send me an email at a later date.
Michelle, I have a question. You were talking about, like, if you were talking to your financial people or something like that, and so should you have this document, the power of the financial power, on a copy on file with them? If you don't have,
it's probably-
otherwise, how, I mean, you can say, oh yeah, I've got that, but they don't know that. So somehow you're saying this is how you have to get it to them, is to.
Right, so what you could do is a couple things. One is you could give a copy of your durable power of attorney for finances, a copy to your financial advisor if you want to. I actually recommend that all my clients let them know that I exist, or whoever you hire to do your other estate planning documents, let them know that they exist. And so if something should come up, you can ring your attorney and say, I want you to send a copy of this document to that person. And the reason to do so is then I'm tracking the use of that document. I know who's accessing your checking account, changing beneficiary designations, accessing money that it's in life insurance policies that you have. I think it's a better idea than giving the original to those people, because once it's out of your hands, it's a little bit hard to retrieve. Yes?
I'm a grandparent who watches a grandchild.
Uh-huh.
And I wasn't aware, okay, so temporary guardianship affidavit, so my daughter would fill that out?
She would. And so afterwards, I brought a couple extra
You did?
copies.
Okay.
I will give you one.
Thank you.
And for anybody that doesn't catch up with me, would like one, send me an email and I'll send you one as well, with
Okay.
an explanation as to how it works.
And you keep saying, send me an email, and I'm looking.
Where's this
uh,
email?
Where's that information?
It's on the handout sheet,
Oh,
and it's in
okay.
the upper left-hand corner.
Are there extras
Uh-huh.
over
And
there?
my business card's there as well.
Okay, we'll get one later. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, all right, we're gonna move on. Liz, you can start us on the. Disaster.
I'm coming to Liz's house.
We all are.
But Sue and I are going to talk about something much more basic than all these legal documents. We're going to be talking about something we all talk about all the time, which is food, basically. And so I've written a date up here. Who knows what happened on this date?
Earthquake.
Okay. This was the last Cascadian subduction earthquake about this time of year, 316 years ago, 9 o'clock at night. So the average of the, earthquake occurrences is I think it's around 300 years. So when people say we're due, that's what they mean. Now, nobody knows when the next one's going to happen, but we all know it is going to happen. So people are understanding this now and realizing that they, have to be prepared, think about getting prepared as best they can. And made a spelling mistake here. But what we have to do basically is to become more resilient, to be able to withstand the catastrophes that's going to be coming. And the earthquake is a very major thing that's in our future. There are going to be other things maybe as well that maybe are not quite so major. Things are changing very rapidly with climate change and things like this, and I think the easy times are over, and things are going to be a little more difficult for us in the future. So this resilience and redundancy is very similar to how nature responds to and recovers from catastrophes. In natural systems, they have built-in resilience and they have lots of redundancy. So that's what people in the Northwest have got to try to develop, that ability and that culture of being prepared for upheavals. So there was a resilience conference a few years ago in Portland that was really good, and somebody at the conference, they said these 3 things. Everybody says it's not going to happen, and everybody says, well, if it does happen, it's not going to happen to me. And then people say, well, if it does happen to me, somebody's going to come rescue me. Somebody's going to come help out. Well, it is going to happen, unless you come to your sell-by date and you go to the big net team in the sky, it's going to happen to you. Or else you move east of Redmond, it's going to happen to you. So it's going to happen. If it happens, somebody will come rescue me. Well, no, not necessarily. The federal government, it'll be years before they get, years. It'll be a long time before they come help. The whole western part of Oregon is going to be affected, so our help is going to come from Redmond and east of there, and it's going to be a long time for those people to get organized. The city is going to be concentrating on where the need is biggest. Might be downtown, or where it's easiest for them to get to, close to a fire station or something like that. Arnold Creek is sort of out on the fringes. It doesn't have a lot of population. We're going to be one of the last areas that people are going to come to. So we have to, work on our resilience. And we just had a little mini catastrophe with the icing up and all the rest of it. People in this neighborhood were complaining that they didn't have garbage, pick up, on their little streets. The garbage company didn't turn up, so. If we're complaining that we can't do without garbage for 1 week, we're not in very good shape to, for the future. So we have to make changes, and a neighborhood association is a real good forum for talking about making those changes. So. I was going to say, the net team is not going to come rescue you, by the way. if it happened tonight, our leader, who is one of the leaders in emergency preparedness in Portland and probably in the Northwest, I would guess, Marcel, he's not going to come rescue you if it happened tonight, because he's in Germany. So, what we have to do is to be as prepared as best we can where we are when it happens. So there's all kinds of things that you can talk about, shelter, first aid, this, that, and the other. We could go talking about this every Arnold Creek meeting for a whole year, but just to make it simple, we're going to just talk about food tonight. We're never going to be fully prepared. It's not, it's a process. It's something you work on. It's not something we can give handouts on and say, go home and do this and you'll be prepared. It's just, it's a process. You have to work on your awareness and your preparedness, and, it takes a long time. Sorry about my glasses. So, food is a good place to start. And, I hope I haven't made you all upset and nervous about the earthquake, because if you're upset and nervous, then, you can't listen, and you never get anywhere. But, everybody here is already better prepared than they were before, because you came to this meeting. So we just have to keep doing things like that and, building up our collective knowledge and connectiveness that we can help each other get ready for this stuff. So when talking about food, came up with these two concepts of pantry and the stash. And I'm going to talk about the pantry, and Sue is going to talk about the stash. So the pantry is pretty much the stuff that you have around all the time. And I have a little handout here about what is the sort of difference between the pantry and the stash. But I think that everybody in Arnold Creek, I think a lot of people have gardens. I think a lot of people do preserving. I think a lot of people shop at farmers markets. They belong to CSAs. They go to New Seasons and buy nice organic stuff. So they're in very good shape. But there are other people in other neighborhoods, like maybe Markham and West Portland Park, for example, who maybe, maybe their refrigerator is empty most of the time. Maybe their pantry is full of chips, and maybe their freezer is full of, frozen pizza. Those kind of people who live in other neighborhoods are not going to be very interested in the pantry. They're going to go, if they want to prepare for the earthquake, they're going to want to go right to the stash, which is more long-term storage. So I'm just going to be talking about the pantry, which is what you have on hand all the time. And we did, a couple of years ago, the NET team, we did have a field trip to somebody's house where we did a little demonstration and talk about the pantry. And I won't mention any names, but the person whose house we were at was sort of embarrassed when we asked to see her pantry.
It's better now.
I'm not going to embarrass anybody tonight by asking what's in your pantry, but I'm going to show you what's in mine. Here we go. Okay. So here we go. I always have this in my pantry. If you want to come over tonight after the meeting, I might share some of this emergency food with you. You're all invited. But after the earthquake, I'm not going to share it because I'll probably drink most of it the first night. And then I was thinking about it, well, what's going to happen to my sessions when the earthquake comes and I realize they're all in glass bottles and they're all going to, So then I thought, well, I should move on to the cans. Means changing my brand and maybe going to Budweiser or something like that.
That just sounds wrong.
And then I began to think, well, how many Budweisers do I have to store to be ready? And then I began to think, well, should I even be thinking about storing beer? And this is just a way in to say, we all have our little pleasures in life, and it could be caffeine, it could be sugar, it could be, I'm not even going to try to guess.
1,000 bottles, I'm ready.
But you can either choose to get a huge dash of what you're addicted to, or else you can maybe try to be a little bit more resilient and not have to deal with all that. So I just have a tomato theme here. I'm a gardener. I haven't bought a fresh tomato in I don't know how many years, but I bought one tonight just for you. This is, fresh food. So everybody has quite a bit of this on hand, usually most of the time, of fresh food. But maybe when you're thinking about extending your pantry, maybe you can think about, some fresh food lasts a lot longer than you might know about. So it might be a good idea to think about being able, especially in the winter, being able to store things like potatoes, onions, cabbages, kiwis, maybe apples, things like that. You can, have a few months' supply on hand all through the winter. So when the earthquake comes, you think the fresh food may disappear really quickly, but not if you have a more thoughtful stash of things that will stay fresh for a long time. Then when you go from fresh, I didn't bring any of my frozen tomato sauce, but this is just a substitute for that, something from the freezer. A lot of us have a lot of food in the freezer. Well, what's going to happen in the earthquake? Yeah. You're going to have to eat a lot of stuff very quickly. Home canned. These are green tomatoes. I didn't make this, I bought this, but okay. A lot of people have home canned stuff. What's going to happen to this in the earthquake? Glass. Gone, probably. So then go on to commercially canned food. This is tomato again. This is, tomato paste is very condensed, very tasty, very nutritious, and very cheap. So all other kinds of canned foods you can put in your pantry. And then dried food. I dry lots and lots of tomatoes. I also dry lots of food. And I'm thinking about drying vegetables. If I ever able to grow enough, if I can keep the deer and the rabbits off next year. Dried food lasts a long time. It's very nutritious, more nutritious than canned food, and it stores well. So maybe you'd like a taste. These are pears. Help yourself. I'll pass them this way. These are prune plums. I'll pass them this way. Have a taste. So that was about it. A look into my pantry, and I don't have a stash. I'm thinking about it, but I haven't got that far. I've only been in the net team about 10 years. I haven't got that far yet. It takes a while. So Sue is going to tell us more.
Those pears were delicious.
Delicious pears. Well, like Liz, unlike Liz, I have a pantry. It's about 8 by 8, has shelves, cupboards, drawers, but it's in the middle of my basement. I'll never get to it in the earthquake. And so I have to have someplace else to put things. I'm going to start off with, this isn't related to food, but it is very related to this time of year. Medications, something you need to think about. What do you take every day? Vitamins, prescription drugs, supplements. You need to have at least a month's supply. And the reason I bring it up this time of year is most people see their physician first thing in the year, get their physical, whatever. You need a 13-month prescription length. You need to set aside 1 month. Sometimes the insurance company won't approve of it unless it's been run through. So think about it. You're going to put away a month's supply. Next year, you're going to rotate those drugs out, use them, and put in another month's supply. So once you get your extra month into the stash, you're okay. You don't need to worry about getting an extra month on your prescription. So think about it. You need to rotate your medications once a year. I do a lot of this stuff first thing in the year, so that's why I bring it up. Water. You've got to have an adequate supply of water. Gallon a day per person, that's a lot of water. You're not going to get it in your average water bottles. So you're going to need to come up with some sort of storage. Most of the water containers must be BPA free. You don't want to be ingesting a lot of other things in the process of making the container. Most of them are blue, some are white. They could be any other color, but just be sure it's BPA free. Then the next thing is, you've got to be able to pick it up. I could pick up larger items than I can now. So if you've got a source of water, probably more than one container so you can move them around. You do need to rotate your water. I have some sort of tape or method of labeling when I last rotated. I rotate the water in the summer. I don't need to water things this time of year. They're getting quite a bit naturally. So most of my dates are going to be somewhere in July when I've rotated the water out. You need to rotate it once a year. You might put a couple of drops of bleach in your container, swish it around a little bit, rinse it out. But water has to be rotated. It shouldn't be stored in the sun. You'll grow things if it's stored in the sun. Shouldn't be stored where it's going to freeze, because then you're going to break your container. So you've got to figure out where you're going to put this, where you can get to it. I'll get to where I put mine at the end. I can get this stuff collected, but where do I put it? That's my biggest problem. So water containers, something that you can lift, something that it's always good to have some sort of a spigot so you can get in and out of it. You don't have to pick this whole thing up and dump it in. You're going to be using this water for many things. Most of the foods behind me require some sort of water as a reconstitution. So water is essential not only to drink, but also as a method of preparing food. And then you're going to need it. You're not going to dump it out. You're going to use it for something else before you dump it out. Water is going to be used many times. Liz went into various ways to preserve things, but first thing you've got to think about is when you're thinking of food and you're thinking of a long time use, what can you tolerate eating? Not what you want or what you really like, but what can you tolerate and what's the most healthy for you over a long time span. So you've got to think in your mind, what can I tolerate eating? And then there are requirements. Do you require gluten-free? Do you really require gluten-free? Or you think you're going to find that down at the Red Cross mess hall? No, you're not. So if you really require gluten-free food, that's something that you should think highly about requiring and getting it stored. If you're using online sources, and I've used online sources for this one and for this one, they'll give you the complete label on the food so you know where it was produced, where it was grown. Do you want your food to come out of China? Think about it. What else is going in your food? So it has the ingredients. Some people will tolerate salt or they won't tolerate another ingredient. Those ingredients are all listed on the online source, so check that out. I have at the bottom of my page, oh, I did. Yes, I do have at the bottom of my page online sources for food. And I have another handout over there which is called Get Prepared. It's a very good handout. And at the bottom of that are more online sources. So once you've got your stash collected, then you must rotate things because they outdate. Most freeze-dried foods, if they're worth their salt, are good for 25 years. So this one's good for 25 years, and this one's good for 25 years. This is, it's called Food for Patriots. If you can stand a lot of propaganda, their food is very good. Especially what's going on in Mal here now. But if you can stand propaganda, their food is very good. And I've tried many of them. I've got two containers this size. 3 months supply for 2 people, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and 25 years. I found them to be just a little bit short on vegetables. So I went back online and I went to the Ready store. And I came up with vegetables. Again, 25 years. Corn, peas, green beans, and broccoli. Not bad for. And that's 1 bucket, 1 person for a month. Doesn't take up too much room. Nice and light. Then I've got various assorted cans. You can make milk, dry milk, and water. Well, you're going to use your water up. And I don't really like dry milk that well. So soy milk, rice milk, another goes on sale. Get six of these. That's good for cereal. Cereal. Think about it. How much liquid is your cereal going to require? Some people can just eat it dry. I like a little moisture with mine. You're not going to have a real good source of bread. So I have some rye. Don't really like it, but I can tolerate it if I have to. Again, dried fruit. What are we all going to need when the electricity goes out? A can opener. Don't forget your can opener if you're going to have cans in your supply. They make chocolate. I'll be in the swapping position because I don't eat chocolate desserts, but I do like other things, so I'll have plenty of chocolate for you. Then you've got, don't forget things like oil, and this happens to be rice vinegar, which is a nice little thing to put in with various different kind of blah food. Now back to my where to put things. I don't have, my garage is detached. It's fairly cold. I have a problem with rats and mice. So I can't put things like this out there because they'll chew through it. As sturdy as it is and as dry as it is, I have these nice large tin cans that I put my other items that they can get into. I have another container of just canned foods, green beans, regular beans, just soups and sort of that sort of canned stuff. I don't need to worry about something chewing through that. So that can go in any kind of a container that's going to hold them. Happens to be a big plastic. But again, at the top, on my lid, I have a list of what's inside, so I don't have to take the lid off and paw through there to figure out what I need to rotate and what's in that particular container. The water sits on my sun porch up against the back of the house. Sun doesn't hit it. May get hot out there, may get cold out there, but it won't freeze. Oh well, unless we get down below 0, then I'll have a little problem. These sit out on the sun porch. Again, back up against the house, and I don't really need to, this has been in the sun all summer, no problem with that. And the container is very good. Again, I have a listing of what's inside. So I don't need to, is it the breakfast that's in here or is it the lunch and dinner? So I kind of separated them, and on the lid, again, I've got a list of what's inside. Dates, when I put things in here, I try to pick the thing off the shelf that's got the most shelf life. And that's what I put in the container. And these get rotated once a year. Any questions? Yes?
For cooking, do you do like a camp stove?
I do have a camp stove, and I have a 5-gallon propane tank, because those little tanks are not going to last you that long. And I went down to the propane store and had them make me a special hose connection between the stove and the propane tank.
But you can run a camp stove off propane?
Yeah. Yes?
Where did you get that nifty tin?
I keep my eyes open for things like garage sales, and I put out a notice, and one friend came through with 4 of them for me. I really like the ones with handles. Yes?
Between freeze-dried versus canned, what's the advantage?
Basically, it's just shelf life. So if you're willing to trade your canned goods out, especially things with acid in them, yearly, and on the bottoms now they have an out date. They didn't used to do that, but now it's very clearly labeled as to how long. I just rotate them out before that out date comes up and eat them in the freeze-dried. Is going to require a little water. I like them both. I mean, for convenience, they're both good. You can get a little more variety in this than you can in a can or a jar. Hopefully the jar doesn't break. The can.
Do you think, having a variety of the freeze-dried, supposed to just having a case of tuna fish for
Well, yeah. If you can tolerate tuna fish for
6 months?
yes, yes. It's more variety than anything else. I do have some Dinty Moore stews and that kind of stuff, but I mean it's this big for one meal, and that's as opposed to one meal this size. Yes.
With the current understanding of the subduction zone earthquake, what is the duration of time that we should be having in mind?
At least a month. You think about what happened in New Orleans. I mean, how long it's, yeah, it's a long time. They're going to be able to get you probably water fairly soon, and maybe some, but like Liz said, they're going to go to the largest population, and we're not it, for food support.
I think 3 months is a good thing to aim for. And, you know, I was thinking, like, to get started, if it all seems a little overwhelming, then maybe you could just pick one person and one period of time. So if you pick a month and plan for a month, you can easily scale that up to 3 months or even a year. So if you pick a person, let's say you pick your dog, you probably already know how much your dog eats in a month. You probably know where to store it. You know that your dog's not going to complain about getting the same meal every night.
But it's very important to remember your animals.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to be provided for.
And then once you've got your dog system down, you might begin to think, well, if the opportunity arises that, maybe I want to trade in this Great Dane model for Chihuahua.
This has become the Donner Party.
It makes you think about how resilient you are, how capable you are of taking care of everything you need to take care of when something bad happens.
In case that everybody doesn't get home and get this all done tonight, one of the things you can do, if it happens right then and there, is to go around and fill your bathtub with water before you shut your water off. Because if poisons get into the water supply, you're not going to be able to get more, and now you've got a full bathtub. Also, you turn it off at your toilets. You will not be using your toilets inside. That's valuable water. Yeah, I lived in San Diego for 6 years during some pretty horrendous earthquakes. You learn all sorts of stuff. But yeah, the water is the most important thing. I mean, you can eat dirt.
If you watched, it was on public broadcasting, that the head of the Portland Water Bureau talked about the fact that all of our water for the west side comes under the Willamette River in pipes, and that all of those will break under the river, and so the west side will not have water for a very long time, and that they would expect that, I can't remember how old they are, they're like from the, I want to say the 30s or something, so anyway. So water will be important.
Yes.
Well, actually, I think Liz mentioned, or you mentioned about medications.
Mm-hmm.
So would a doctor's office allow for that extra month's supply?
Usually if you explain what you're going to do with it, they will give you an extra month's prescription.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't heard of a physician, when you tell them what you're going to use it for.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the physician. I'm concerned about the insurance companies saying yes to this.
Yes. Sometimes it gets a little tricky as you try to store a little extra to put away in your stash. Once you get that first month, then you're okay.
Yeah, all right.
Because you just take it out and use it next year, and you put a new month in.
Okay, thank you.
Now I also have signs. If you haven't seen these before, put this in your front window or a window that you can see from the outside if you're okay or if you need help.
Yeah, the NET team, if they assemble if an earthquake happens, if they assemble at right here at Stevenson, they will be dealing with communications. They will be setting up an emergency medical facility and things like that. The NET team would like you to stay where you are if you can take care of yourself. They want you to stay there, take care of yourself, take care of your family, then take care of your street. Don't run down to the Stevenson here and expect that there'll be a crew ready to, help you out. So, if you can help the NET team, or if you're really in desperate need of help, then you go there. But if you can manage on your own, that's what the NET team would like you to do. And really, it's going to be like camping. And, if I was going to give anybody any advice about preparing for the earthquake, I would say, well, you need to go camping. If you don't know how to do it, You know, if you're not a skilled camper, go camping. I mean, you can go camp in your front yard for a weekend. You know, try out your shelters, try out your food, try out your toilet, try out your recipes. You know, practice. And that's basically what, after the earthquake, I think that's what we'll be doing. One-pot meals.
Yes.
In terms of camping, I feel like that REI, which is just down the road, is really a great place to browse around. And I thought their water purification stuff is pretty fantastic. And between both the chemical drops and tablets and these new filtration systems that have just come in the last few years. I mean, I bought one for something like $25. Will do thousands of liters, and it's just put it in with your emergency kit. Because I think, you know, a lot of the chances the water's going to be in puddles at the bottom of Sioux Street.
I'll be out there drinking it.
And in Arnold Creek.
Straws.
Yeah, we gotta have that.
So I would think that being prepared to purify water from wherever you can get it is a useful thing to be adding into your kits. And REI is a great place to be looking around.
And if there's any other topics you want us to cover, I'll be glad to do it later. Just
I thought it might, it's just an idea, I thought maybe in the July, our summer meeting when the school is closed, that we might have an outdoor meeting and try some experiments with fire and stoves and routine might be fun, you
It
know.
might have to be in your backyard. I don't know
Yeah.
about the school allowing.
We've done it before with
Yeah.
Marcel's, we've done it out there on that piece of concrete, yeah.
Freeze-dried potluck.
But we could get Marcel to do a training of whatever people are interested in. He'll be back from Germany soon, and
yes.
I found that it's easier to get motivated if you have a neighbor or friend in the community that's willing to do it with you, and you go out and you shop together and you put together your supplies, and then you share that with other neighbors, and then you maybe can potentially try to get a whole group of people in one area. And if we all could do something like that, then we're all better off.
I was also thinking this is a good Christmas gift for my family and friends.
Well, there you are.
It was like, online sources. I'll be shipping them some dried food.
The vegetable container.
Yes.
Is that on here?
Yes, it is. It's called the Ready Store.
Wait, yeah, My Patriot supplied prepare-wise and emergency foods.
Well, my goodness, I must have missed one. I'll put that on there.
So,
I'll get you the address, hopefully.
They have them at Costco.
they have that in Costco?
I don't know if it's that one, but Costco was doing a big thing online about preparedness and, yeah.
Okay,
and
so-
they're-
Oh, so it's just readystore.com.
Yeah. TheReadyStore.com for vegetables.
Good news is we're not in a liquefaction zone, so we won't be sliding into the creek. You're already in the creek.
True, though, some areas in our neighborhood will probably have landslides.
Well, I talked to a geologist that lives up on Sylvania Terrace, because I said, what's the risk here? Says it's very low.
That is good to know, something good, okay.
I'm trying to be positive here. That and 1,000 bottles of wine, I'm good.
So I think we're good to go for tonight, right?
Okay, I think so.
Okay, the next meeting is going to be Tuesday, February 9th at 7. And I think we can adjourn the meeting and let's thank our net presenters.
And I was serious about if anybody wants